and create military thriving cultures and communities. They achieve this by strategically aligning company talent, social impact, and marketing strategies to ensure veterans, military spouses, and transitioning service members not only get hired, but are empowered to succeed and stay long term. He does this with a deep, proven experience. Prior to Zeromils, Tommy served as senior talent leadership in two roles at the world's largest companies, Walmart and Verizon. And while at Verizon, he built a dedicated military recruiting program so successful that it helped the company achieve number one ranked military friendly companies for 3 consecutive years. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give Tommy a warm round of applause and thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Kate. You got a great last name. I love your last name, so appreciate the clap. I saw you going. Hey, tell you it's my pleasure to be here, and really excited to kind of give you a quick overview of what we do, how I've been involved in this space, and what kind of we offer to help from a support standpoint. So I'll
Yeah,
kind of
go right ahead.
yeah, I'll jump in and just kind of talk a little bit about my background, how I got here, so that it helps paint the picture. And then, if there's questions that you want to ask me, I'm happy to do so, but I can elaborate on whatever area you want to go down the road. But, so again, Tommy Jones, I did 20 years in the Army. I was a commo guy. I retired in 2013 as a 25 uniform. I'm from New Jersey, born and raised. People say I don't sound like I'm from New Jersey anymore. Well, people in New Jersey say that, but when I'm outside of New Jersey, people think I'm still from New Jersey. So, I had the pleasure of serving for 20 years, and it was the best time of my life. I'll never regret my military service or what has been provided, what the military has provided me from a way of life. So I retired in 2013, and as I was retiring, I was in a position where I got offers to teach ROTC at Princeton University. So I took that assignment, got me back to New Jersey, and I taught ROTC to develop young officers to become officers on active duty and reserve. I fell in love with it. I really enjoyed it. Made the decision not to accept the rank of sergeant major and retire back in my state of New Jersey. And I thought, well, I'm a commo guy, right? Everybody talks about their skills and their translation of skills that, it's hard to translate service member skills. And I'm like, well, I'm a commo guy. I mean, most of my skills should transfer pretty easy into the civilian sector. I had checked the block. I had a bachelor's degree. I had an internet networking engineer certification, C plus, A plus, Net plus, a CCNA. I applied to like 200 jobs and I got 0 phone calls. And so I went from being really confident and maybe a little bit cocky to humbleism really, really quick, right? It smacked me in the face really quick because I was transitioning out at a time where the unemployment rate for veterans was around 13 to 18%. And I was thinking I'm not part of that 13, 18% because I'm a commo guy. I can find a job easy. And I'll give you an example of some of the jobs that I was applying to. I wasn't trying to be a CEO of a company. I was literally applying to jobs at Verizon, managing 20 to 25 technicians, leading the installation of fiber optic cabling and getting rejected within 24 hours. Like literally, I had a fantastic resume that I paid somebody to do. And it said on my resume that in Iraq, I led a platoon of cable dogs that ran 500 miles of fiber through the whole theater of operation. And guess what? Rejected immediately. Like people couldn't see the translation. So it was extremely, extremely frustrating. Long story short, I was in the PX at Fort Dix, New Jersey, and ran into a Vietnam veteran. This was my first experience to networking. I turned around and I thanked him for his service, and he said, "Oh, what are you going to do when you get out?" And I said, "Well, I thought I was going to work for Verizon, but screw them. These companies say they want to hire veterans, but they don't really want to hire veterans." And so he's like, "Well, you should come back and talk to me after you grab your food." And I'm like, "Oh man, I'm going to get stuck talking to this guy about war heroes. I got, war stories, but I'm going to do it anyway because one, my students weren't done getting their stuff from the PX, and two, I wanted to pay respect and kind of hear his story. Well, it was the best thing that I ever did. I sat down with him and he said, "Oh, are you an engineer?" And I'm like, "No, I just have a sapper tab." And he's like, "Well, are you in the reserves?" I'm like, "No, I'm active duty. I'm teaching ROTC at Princeton, and I'm currently, getting ready to retire." And he's like, "Oh, what are you going to do?" I told him that. And he said, "Well, my daughter's the vice president of talent acquisition for Verizon. Maybe she can help you out." So I literally stepped in it, right? So he takes my information. Now, as you're looking at, all the applications that I applied and what I'm thinking, and every person that I talked to at a career fair that told me that I was God's gift to transition and that I'd be a perfect hire for a veteran for a company, and everything went radio silence. I didn't have much confidence in this connection either. Now I got a 75-year-old guy that's writing his name on my email address on his napkin, and I'm making sure, like, hey, you spelled that Tommy, Tango, Oscar, Mike, Yankee. I'm like breaking it down Barney style, and he's like, I got it. I got it. So that's on a Friday. Well, Saturday, I get an email from the vice president of talent acquisition. She says, "Hey, my name is Claudia. My father said he had a conversation with you, said you were applying to jobs, and he said, I have to meet you." And my father never does this. So I was shocked. So he brought me in. And so she brought me in on Monday. Now, mind you, 6 months before that, I bought a blue suit. I had a white shirt and a red power tie. I was ready to interview. And I go in there and it was a conversation. They learned about my background and they're like, "Man, you have so much experience that, the jobs you were applying for, you're probably overqualified for those. And really, we don't know how to translate what you did." So I started with them as in a leadership development program. I was basically their token veteran hire and talent acquisition, and I was okay with that. Right. But what they didn't know is they didn't know the type of person that I was and who we are as individuals, that we are extremely resourceful and that we get things done. And you can't say that in an interview. You just got to show them. Right. So I came in there just like I would at any unit. I'd assess, understand where the opportunities are, and I'd start making an impact. Well, my assessment was that Tommy Jones applied to 25 field operations manager roles and nobody called me. So I had a little bit of chip on my shoulder. And so I went and I started to talk to the recruiters that held those requisitions. And I made a promise that I was going to go in and I was going to find veterans that didn't have a comms background and I was going to show them the transferable skills. So I started out with that role in 2004 and 2012. Before I joined Verizon, they had hired about 400 veterans nationwide. In the first 90 days of Verizon, we hired 600 veterans and 2,600 veterans by the end of the year. And it was all about pounding the pavement, going to hiring managers and recruiters and talking about the translation of skills and making people pick up the phone and talk to veterans and falling in love with them like we know we're capable of. And it took fire. I mean, we really just created a culture. And I was very strategic about that job. So I met with the hiring manager and the recruiter and said, "Hey, this is the leadership team." I said, "What are you looking for in a field operations manager?" Because I thought I had it. And now I led a company of 200 people, but this platoon sergeant role or this field operations role, they were looking for somebody to manage 20 to 25 technicians that install fiber optic cabling. Did that mean that I needed to have a comms background to do that? No, I needed to be an E7, E6, gunny, somebody that had leadership experience that understood time management, priorities of work, all those things that we learned throughout our time in the military. And so that went on, and we went to in 2013, we hired 26 field operations managers. 24 of them were veterans. None of them were comms people. And 50% of them got promoted to area manager within the first 6 months. Three of them got promoted to director of field operations for the whole state of New Jersey, Massachusetts, and Pennsylvania. So it works, but you got to get past that resume. You got to get in touch. You got to start talking to people. So that was my first experience with networking. And it was really, really eye-opening. So I later journeyed on to Walmart. I did the same work at Walmart, built out their enterprise strategy, helped work with them. And then after 18 months, they wanted me to relocate to Arkansas. That wasn't in the cards for me, so I decided to exit stage left and go on a consulting journey where I was picked up by Zeromils to be a consultant for them. And really talking about what Clay said, we are a company that focuses on building enterprise strategies and creating military thriving communities and cultures for our service members. Using my experience building military programs and companies, um, flipping that on the other side, and how do we help other companies do a good job of hiring service members, but putting them in the right jobs. When I was at Verizon, I promised myself that I would never walk around and offer up a retail sales job to any veteran. Now, if someone wanted to get into retail, I'd happily get them in there. But I wanted to look at them from a level that they were at, and I wanted to make sure that their rank and responsibility translated into the role that they had. And we were extremely successful. Did we hire a lot of veterans in retail and customer service? Absolutely. But that's because they wanted to be in those roles and those roles that they wanted to be, they were interested in. And it was aligned to their skill set when it all came said and done. So um, I tell you that because those are things that you have the opportunity to do when you move into a company. You have the opportunity to shape and influence up wherever you are in your organization. So I run I ran employee resource groups where we bring in organizations to do nonprofit and volunteering work. Our military ERGs in both of those companies that I were in were the most active and giving back to the military community. Veterans volunteer 30% more than their civilian counterpart. And when they do that in their community, it kind of continues to serve that purpose that we have in the military, supporting our own. So that's kind of high level, a little bit about my journey and how I got here. I'm happy to dig in a little bit more on some other areas, but Clay, I want to pause and let you kind of jump in.
No, thank you, Tommy. Greatly appreciate it. You definitely are someone that I wanted to chat with for a while because of your experience and everything that you went through. The civilian job market is constantly evolving and changing. What is the biggest trend that you see that veterans and military spouses need to be prepared for right now to future proof themselves?
Well, I'll tell you right now, if you're not using AI, then you should immediately get off this call, sign up for ChatGPT or an AI platform and get on it, right? Because just like in the military, you need to understand your operational environment, right? And you need to understand how to gather intelligence for what's coming up in the future. So when I start to talk about that, I talk about it in very specific terms, meaning, you know, you'll hear a show of hands. Raise your hand as you were transitioning out of the military, they told you to reach out to other veterans to help you get a job in their companies. Probably for the most part, all of you, right?
Oh, I mean, here's my hand up.
Yeah. And so don't underestimate allyship and and military people that didn't serve in the military. And here's why. We walk around and we talk about 99% of us have never served, 1% of us has served. Well, if you think that way, and that's what the stats that we're talking about are, then you should assume that 99% of them have no idea what a chief petty officer did, what a Navy SEAL did, what a comms guy did, what first sergeant is, what their rank and responsibility is, what an executive officer is. Like, they don't know all those secondary skills. They don't know what the rank and responsibility is. They've either learned about that through a third party of somebody telling them, or they've learned it through a movie, or they heard, oh, I went to school with a guy named Clay. He joined the Army and I haven't heard from him since, but he was a great guy, right? That's about the extent of what they know, right? It's not like World War II where many, many people served and it came from their families. So there's a further and further disconnect from the civilian sector. The other thing you need to realize and be equipped with is you are premier talent. And you have to think that way. And why do I say that? If you look at World War II, which was known as the greatest generation, we've all heard that. Well, guess what? We're the most educated fighting force ever. So we're the most educated fighting force. So if you just sit back and look at an infantryman from World War II to post 9/11, look at the decisions and the profile of that candidate. So you have an infantryman, World War II, long rifle, maybe has a radio, maybe not, definitely doesn't have night vision goggles, has a map and a notebook, right? Fast forward and look at post 9/11 veterans. You got laser rangefinders. You got night vision goggles. You got digital maps. You have global positioning programs. You have FBCB2. That takes some level of technical experience and education just to be able to do that. Then fast forward of working in an operation where you have to be the ambassador on the ground. The decision making is different. The rules of engagement are different. How you're treated on a political stage is different. So think about the responsibility of a 19-year-old kid in World War II and a 19-year-old kid in post 9/11. So I tell you that because you have to be able to articulate that. You need to be able to articulate that as you're starting to navigate this thing. I'm an AI junkie, right? Because I'm all about being resourceful and doing things the most resourceful way. And the first thing you need to be able to do is answer the question, what do I want to be when I grow up? Right? I know it sounds silly, and I know that people may say, oh, you shouldn't say that because it doesn't sound as very professional. But it's true. You've left a part of your area of you're doing something really great. And now you have to continue to find that purpose and figure out what that is. And transition happens for the rest of your life, right? And the one thing that I failed my service members is not equipping them with all the resources that were available to them as they were getting out, both from an employment standpoint, from an education standpoint, from an entrepreneurship standpoint, and from a purpose standpoint. That means, are you financially prepared to understand what 401k is? I didn't know anything about that. As an E7, I started TSP, right? Didn't know what the hell I was doing. I just said, all right, I'll just take some money out of my check to go to TSP, but I had no idea what it is. Literally, this year was the first time that I looked at my TSP, my 401k from Verizon, and my 401k from Walmart, and sat with a financial advisor, right? So that can work on its own. So I tell you this because as you start to look at using ChatGPT and using AI tools, you should look at asking questions a different way and talk to it and use it. So I'm going to use Tommy Jones as an example of how I navigate this. I teach classes on tactical transition, so I'm happy to help anytime, jump in and help you guys with any of this. And my resources and my connections are your connections. So now that I'm here, we are brothers and sisters in arms for life. So I know that I saw somebody drop my LinkedIn in there. If you'll see that I have over 15,000 connections. If I'm connected with a company that you're connected with or a job you're looking at, please utilize me so that I can help open the doors for you and have those conversations. But with AI, this is how I want you to think. I'm going to just use my military experience first. I was a 25 uniform 5, Foxtrot 7, 2, Papa, X-ray, Mike, right? Sierra. So you're like, what the hell is that? Those are ASI. So I was a Pathfinder. I was airborne. I was air assault. I was a drill sergeant. I was a instructor. And I was a first sergeant. So all of those get skill identifiers. Well, what happens inside of those skill identifiers? Just like in college, there's a course curriculum. And so if you're looking and you're analyzing who you are as an individual and the skills that you bring to an organization, you need to dissect the hell out of your occupation and put that into AI. Then from there, you say, you know what? I don't want to be a comms person, but I want you to strip out all of the skills in here that are aligned to managing teams of 20 personnel, being a project manager, or how would this affect me in a job that is in nursing? What skills bring me to that, closer to that role? And so now it's going to start to create that funnel down to what you want. And then you start asking questions like, well, these are things I like to do. What are some of the soft things that I like to do? What are some of the hard things I like to do? Dump as much information into that as possible, and it'll come back with you to tell you, hey, these are roles that I think are most qualified for. But you got to ask questions. I would say, hey, I'm in New Jersey. This based off of what I told you, what jobs and what titles are in the market right now that are most qualified for me? And it'll bring up operations manager, field operations manager, whatever, all those roles and so now you take that as your new norm of networking. So let's say you go to a career site and you see a job on Verizon, and you use their skills matcher, and it says, Derek would be a perfect fit for um, a field operations manager. You take that job description, you scrape it, you drop it in based off of the information you already put in, and say, based off this job description and based off what I told you about all my skills and occupations and what I like to do, how much of a fit am I for this? And from there, you lift and shift that job title and you drop it dead center mass in LinkedIn and you say, Field Operations Manager, Verizon, New Jersey. And then hit search. And there's going to be tabs up top that are going to say people, groups, all of that stuff. Click people and find people that are in there that have that title already. Don't worry about if they're a veteran or not. Chances are they want to help you. They don't know how to help you. So now you say, okay, I see Derek's in here, and I see John and Kate's in here. They're all field operations manager. I'm going to shoot them an instant message and say, hey, I'm a transitioning service member. I saw a role on your site. I see that you're currently in this role. I'd love to learn a little bit more about this. I feel like I'm a good fit for this role. You send it to 10 people. One response is, yeah, I'd love to talk to you, Derek. Get on with Derek. And you start telling them about your background, and you're like, Derek, yeah, you know what? You're not a field operations manager. You're a senior network engineer. Write it down. Boom. Now you've created your new network, right? Now you're triangulating that shot group to get in and talk to the right people. And the goal here is to get to them that aren't recruiters, that aren't talent professionals, because what's going to happen is they've been in this space. Just like you were in the military, if someone came to you and said, hey, do you know anybody from the Air Force that was a cybersecurity expert? Actually, I do. Let me introduce you to them. What's going to happen in here is the civilian sector are now going to be ambassadors for you. They're going to start talking on behalf of you. If they like you, they're going to be like, you know what? I'm talking to this guy, Derek, who's a phenomenal person. I think he has the transferable skills to come work at your organization. I worked with you back in AT&T. You should reach out to this guy. So again, just a different approach on how you start to navigate that. The other thing is, how many of you have seen the LinkedIn Opportunity Report? The LinkedIn Veterans Opportunity Report. Probably not many of you, but if you haven't,
I will say that I am a religious LinkedIn user, and Tommy, and I have never even heard of that.
All right, so I'm gonna drop it in the chat.
Go, yeah, please do 1000%, because now I find that very interesting.
All right, so this is the social impact report for LinkedIn. So in 2023, Corey Boatwright, who used to be the head of talent or the head of LinkedIn military programs, when you click that link, you can read the full report. What it's going to do is it's going to equip you with a couple of different things. It's going to tell you where are the highest trends of need for job titles and skills in the market, right? There you go. And if you hit that full report there, it'll make you probably download it. But what I love about it is that it's going to show you how you stack up to the civilian sector. So if you scroll down a little bit here on this report, it's going to tell you that veterans are 3 times more educated than their counterparts. Why? Because we have tuition assistance, we have the GI Bill, we have all these different things that are available to us. Then it's going to show you the most in-demand jobs that are out there and skills that are most needed. Now, this is obviously 2023, and that stuff has evolved a little bit. But if you stop right there, this kind of helps paint the picture of what we talked about. There's 18 million U.S. veterans in the United States. Of that, about 5.5% of them are in the civilian population and workforce. And on the right-hand side, it talks about how many veterans are on LinkedIn. There's over 2 million users on veterans. It's probably much more now. Breaks down the demographics of it. And so utilize this as you're starting to go through this process and looking for employment opportunities. Go down a little bit further, if you could, to the next page. This talks about education, skills, unemployment, and retention. 60% of veterans are attaining bachelor's degree or higher. I can tell you, for example, being in businesses, that this is true. 3 times more likely to have the education background, but the 61% on their skills-based hiring is the number one thing that companies are going after. So now you not only have the education requirements, because I can guarantee you probably 90% of you on here have a degree of some type, shape, or form, but now you have the skills as well. So now you need to look at, again, as you're looking at that AI tool, all right, we've already unpacked some of those skills from a soft skill, from a hard skill by rank and responsibility. But think about now, I was a 25 uniform 5. Well, what does a 5 do? I was an E8. So what are the roles and responsibility of a 5, right? Did it manage a certain number of people? Did it manage a certain number of volume of money, right? Did I manage in excess of $2 million, right? Think about all the entry RERs and OER bullets and blocks and evaluations that you have. When I tell you, I drop everything. I don't write anything. I drop everything. I cut and paste everything in AI and help it tell my story. And then I'll even talk to it. I'll literally hit the mic button on AI and say, okay, now instead of me typing it, because I got New Jersey education and I'll misspell everything, I'll say, hey, based off of this, I want to know this, 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 and this. Again, you're triangulating that shot group, giving you more information to be more prepared. So to answer your question, I know it was a long-winded answer, Clay. There's so many things that are on the rise, and AI can help you steer that and create a map. You can say from here, okay, how do I get from being a 25 uniform 5 pop shop to a field operations manager? Create a roadmap and a transition plan for me based off of that. And so why do I tell you that? Most veterans get out and they spend 95% of their time on LinkedIn applying to jobs and 5% of their time networking. Reverse engineer that. You want to spend 5% of your time applying to jobs, and you want to spend 95% of your time networking. Because networking is what's going to get you a job, right? And that means if you're in 7-Eleven, Wawa, you're saying, hey, you're talking to people, you're outgoing, you're explaining. You never want to be in a position where you're off guard and you can't tell your story and what you're looking for. And if you have that equipped because you already know what your 30-minute talk or 30-second talk track is going to be, you can refine that and it should just roll off your tongue. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense to me for sure. In sidebar on that, kind of continuing the AI trend, is there a particular AI platform that you have seen the most successful, or are they all pretty much the same in your mindset?
Yeah, the cheapest one.
Okay.
I,
So
that, I'm,
so Gemini, ChatGPT, Gronk,
yeah,
all of them, you like them all?
I use ChatGPT all the time. I'm just I'm an old man, so that's the first one that came out I started been using. But I love ChatGPT. What I like about it, it's going to remember all of the things that you put in there. So you can always, I can come back a month later and be like, hey, remember, pull up the the report that I did on myself on ChatGPT, and it'll bring it back up and refresh it and all that stuff. So you can tailor that right away, right? And I'm happy, Clay, to do a class on that as well for the team. Just kind of walk through an example of how to do that anytime. I can you let me know, and I'm happy to do that. But
That's definitely something I'll pass along to the leadership for sure. I do want to circle about, kind of using AI being sort of that resource for sure, but this is me personally coming from the HR space. I have seen, and we're starting to see some ATS systems start implementing AI reading capability to that.
yeah,
So Workday is one of the big ones that's kind of pushing on that. I don't know why they're doing it. I guess they're just, phoning it in per se. What would be your suggestion to some of these people that are, using AI to craft everything per se, that strategy, their resume, things like that, but then they start seeing those rejections automatically, even though it's like you exceed expectations, everything like that. And it's because it's one of those AI tracking ATS systems.
yeah, good question. There's no silver bullet to getting a job, right? So as you start to go down this road, the key to using AI is being transparent and using nothing in there should be anything that is fluffed or fake. And the more you interact with it, the more personalized it gets to you, right? So if I say I walked to the store to buy Mountain Dew and I put it into ChatGPT and they tell you, hey, this is how you should say I went to the store to get Mountain Dew, right? It's just a different way of saying it, but it's still what you've done. I went to the store to get Mountain Dew for $3.50, and I wanted to get it faster. So how did I do it? And it's going to tell you, right? But it's your story. So you're building your story in there and you're making it specific to you. So although it may be formatting wise aligned to you, you want to look at the basic and preferred qualifications. So let's say you get to a job description, you see a basic qualification that says, all candidates must have 3 years of experience. Well, you take that, you drop it in and say, based off of this job description and based off of my experience, do you think I have 3 years of equivalent experience and why? Right? So now it's saying it, well, Tommy, based off of your time in Afghanistan, you did X, Y, and Z. Great. Woo. I repurpose it and put it in there. That's mine. Now, if an AI tool goes through and sees that, what it's going to report is, like, you can test this out. Go on LinkedIn, copy people's posts that they do, and drop it into AI and say, has this post been done by AI? And it's going to say, it could be, but there's a lot of human aspects to it. Right? Now, if you drop your resume in there and you drop everything in there and it says, this is 100% AI, you don't want to submit that stuff because you've taken out the personalization and you've basically taken a document that is not you. Does that make sense?
So rework it based off of those recommendations, regardless of what what you're thinking. You could be the most bomb-proof, ironclad resume out there, and it will sit there and get torn apart. Got it.
Yep.
Like it, 1000%. Before I sit there and I continue on with some more questions, because this is probably one of the best sessions I've ever had facilitating. Does anybody have any questions here for Tommy? Josh and Tim, two of my favorites. Go, Josh, you're first. Tim, you're second. Go ahead.
Hey, good morning, Tommy. Hey, thanks for coming on and talking to us. I was excited to see you coming on, somebody with a talent and recruiting background. I've been kind of in the talent management, talent acquisition, recruiting background for a little over a decade for the Marine Corps, officer enlisted recruiting pipelines, and then training and building teams really across the nation for recruiting. It's something I'm still looking to go into once I retire. But it's, I'm using the AI, trying to build the network, having to kind of restart the network because I had a recruiter seat on LinkedIn before. So now I had to restart on my own.
Yeah.
So it's, and I know you had said you kind of fell into it on the talent acquisition kind of background. And it's like, that's what I'm trying to get into. It's just like, I'm just like hitting a wall. I mean, any tips or suggestions?
Lots. Yeah. So not to cut you off. So, I mean, you got to get to a conversation with somebody. And so the way I tell military recruiting is not the same as corporate recruiting. It's just not, right? But it doesn't mean that you don't have the transferable skills. And so how do I paint this picture? Well, if you're a station commander of a recruiting station, well, that's equivalent to a director of talent acquisition or maybe a senior manager of talent acquisition. So understanding that translation is important. Think about Workday, Oracle, like ATS applicant tracking systems, right? Your experience in recruitment tracking systems is the same thing. So your familiarization with applicant tracking systems, the difference is your hire manager is not a hire manager. It's a billet that you're filling for a workforce strategy, just like in the military. Does that make sense? So the way that you're talking about it, you have to translate it to how it could be utilized in the civilian sector. So go through the jobs and duty descriptions that you've held in recruitment and take that, lift and shift it, drop in AI and say, okay, I didn't have the same, it's not like mentality, right? So they're not going to see that you're going to, but if you're going to school to recruit kids to become Marines, well, guess what? You're trying to do the same thing at a career fair. You're trying to do the same things. The difference is you're probably not doing an offer like they do. Okay, well, they still get an offer, right? They get offered an occupational code. They get offered, the compensation's the same, so you're not going to have to worry about that. You're still going to have to do a background check, just like a recruiter's going to have to do. You're going to have to still do an onboarding, which is MEPS, right? So think about the things that are used in civilian terminology. That's what they're talking about, and how that mirrors up to yours. You've done it all. It's just how you tell that story. And I'm
Yeah.
happy to go even more, Josh.
Yeah,
Go
no,
ahead.
that's pretty much what I've done, and looked at other, other speakers that I came on, and then other people that I've networked with that I know have somewhat similar backgrounds, kind of looked at their resumes, and talking with them, and kind of, revised my resume 1,000 times over the last month, and putting that all, even my LinkedIn, in more of a civilian role, thought process, and then kind of those billets. Because like I said, I've done it all really within the recruiting. You training, across the nation. I've worked at MEPS as well. So I've done all of that,
Right.
and trained officers, trained enlisted recruiters. So it's just putting that all into the civilian terms, and then getting that out to people, and then like, okay, cool, I understand what you've done.
Yep. And now it's the networking piece, right? And so now is where you want to start to get into talent professionals, and reaching out to them and talking to them, and understanding the rank of those. So literally you want to just put yourself out there and say, hey, my name is Josh. I'm transitioning. Don't say you're retiring. I'm transitioning out of the military. I have a strong background in talent acquisition, retention, and recruiting. Would love to learn a little bit more about your background. Create those networks. Most people start out, like, listen, when I started, I was an individual contributor, literally a consultant, making $65,000 a year at Verizon. I was making less money than I was on active duty, because again, I didn't think about the tax implications that I had. Like I jumped all in. Like they offered me my first job, I'm like, I'll take it. That was it, right? So understand, like I was okay with going backwards to go forward because I knew what I was going to bring to the table. But networking with other talent professionals, like even being connected with me, I'll introduce you to other heads of military programs. The problem with military recruiting, not like from being in the Marine Corps, but like in my job, when I led recruiting functions in military and diversity at Verizon and Walmart, you start to get this, he can only do military recruiting. So if I were you, I would try to get into traditional recruiting first, usually with a contract company where it's a placement firm or recruiting firm first, because those RPOs, those recruiting organizations, you get you're going to get busy. Like you're going to learn every aspect of talent acquisition up to the client facing piece of it, right? But utilize me to help meet others so I can help kind of get you more well-rounded. I'm happy to do introductions to people as you start to look at openings.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Tom. Like I say, I'll shoot you a message on LinkedIn. Definitely want to connect.
All right, great.
All right, Tim, you go right ahead, Mr. Ambiguity with the resume, because you and I have a similar background.
Hey, how's it going? This is Tim. Thanks for taking the time, Tommy, to come and talk to you to us. I've got
Yeah,
two questions for you. So you mentioned tactical transition classes. So I just wanted you to kind of define that a little more.
yeah,
And then you also have been, brutally honest with how you're uneducated with, some of the TSP, 401k comparisons, that kind of stuff. Uh, with that, do you have any knowledge on the combat related special compensation for retirement pay? Like I've heard a little bit about it, and I've looked into it a little bit. Haven't had found like great resources to really explain that. So I was just curious if you were smart on that.
yeah. Well, I'm not smart on anything, and my wife would reinforce that all the time. But yeah, so special compensation, it applies to those that haven't hit their 20 years active duty service. So it's not above and beyond that. So if you're getting, so let's say you did 15 years and you got out for medically retired, that you're eligible for special compensation from them. If you do 20 years on active duty and you retire and you're getting VA compensation from the VA, then you're not eligible for it because you're over that 20-year mark and you're getting your retirement and your compensation, if that makes sense. How many years do you have left? How many years did you have in?
I'll be retiring at 20. I think the combat related special compensation, what it does is
Yeah.
it takes your regular retirement that's taxable and it makes it non-taxable. So you can still get paid from the VA and still
Yes.
get your military retirement, but your military retirement is non-taxable at that point, is my understanding of it. And I think that's why it's a hidden gem that they try to keep hidden. And I feel like there's got to be some strings attached to it that I'm not seeing, but I haven't found yet. So that's what I'm trying to
Have
pull
you have you done any YouTube videos on it?
a couple.
Yeah, because there's some really good ones out there. I would definitely YouTube it. There's some guys that's all they do is talk about combat special compensation and how to navigate that, and they'll give you all of the answers you need. Like there'll be links, there'll be step by step that can do it. And I can do some additional research on it. You asked about the tactical. So did that answer that question on the compensation piece?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to just share my screen real quick and show you just kind of high level what I talk about on you should be able to see my presentation coming up here in a second. All right.
We can see it.
So, all right. So this is the tactical readiness class that I teach. It's about translating your military skilling, building a professional brand, targeting strategic opportunities, decoding job markets, and navigating civilian culture. And I just high level. So one of the things that we as veterans do is this is the biggest thing that we do. We look at job opportunities through the consumer lens. If I haven't heard of the company, I don't even consider them as an employer. Right? So, for example, if I only looked at Verizon as a retail sales company and said I never want to work, and this is what the conversations I'd have. I go to a career fair and I talk to a veteran, and they'd be like, "Dude, I don't want to do retail sales." I'm like, "Okay, well, I don't want to do retail sales either. Did you ever do cybersecurity? You're a 25 Bravo." They're like, "Yeah." I said, "Okay, we have a network. It's the largest network in the world. Why didn't you?" And they're like, "Oh, I didn't think about that. We have the largest supply chain in the world. I didn't think about that. We're a supply person, right?" So don't look through the consumer lens. And again, I'm happy to take this class and teach it again at another time because I don't want to take up too much time. But these are the things that I'll talk about: building your professional brand, how you communicate inside of a company and outside of a company when you're talking to civilians, how to use AI to search your career match, reverse engineering job titles and postings. A lot of this stuff that is something that I just use from my experience, and building out a roadmap for transitioning. So that's what I mean by tactical. Being very, very purposeful in everything that you do is building yourself to be in a better place to talk to your next opportunity. Right? You don't want to be caught not having the right information to rattle off because you're unprepared for the job market. That answer you, Tim?
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Chris, you are next. Go ahead, sir.
Hey, Tommy. Hey, got a quick question, or I got a statement for my question. So I was stationed in South Jersey for almost a decade, and South Jersey is a hidden gem in the mid-Atlantic area. Like it's beautiful. It's not city. It's a great spot to raise a family.
So I live in Toms River, which I
Okay.
hate to say this, but where I grew up is where they filmed Jersey Shore.
Yeah.
So I've never
Yeah, I was
watched an
there when,
episode, but I unfortunately that's where we're known for. So
yeah, for sure. So my question, so I'm a comm guy too, and I've been in the senior enlisted ranks for quite a number of years, so I'm not as technically relevant as like a E4, E5.
Right.
So I see you pivoted away from the technical comm stuff into more your people management, people leadership realms. What was the deciding factor to give up on the technical aspect of a career over?
I needed a job, and I was taking whatever was given to me, and then I fell in love with it. I didn't know anything about talent acquisition. I didn't know anything about recruiting. Matter of fact, I was a drill sergeant at one point in my career, which is the complete opposite, right?
Mhm.
But I didn't realize how much I loved um, developing people. Like that's what we do in the military. The civilian sector and the military sector, the way I explain it is in the civilian sector, the civilians serve up and we serve down in the military. That's the difference between leadership styles, in my opinion. And you'll still influence higher in the military, but you're responsible for those below you. Um, so that's kind of how I look at the civilian sector. The way I made my jump, I just got lucky to get in this space. I think the more that you talk to people and the more that they learn about your background, your rank and responsibility, and what you're capable of from a developmental standpoint and what you bring to the table, they'll never see that on a resume. And so I use that example about the field operations manager. None of those people were comms. I specifically did that because I wanted to showcase what rank and responsibility can do for an organization. Because you can teach somebody to manage people. You can teach people about the technical stuff. Like you, I was applying to field operations manager leading fiber optic cabling, but I didn't know crap about splicing fiber. I've seen my soldiers do it, but I didn't know how to do it myself. Right? I didn't know how to configure routers. I didn't know how to do port security anymore. If I had to do that as an E8, we had bigger problems in the Army. If you're responsible for Tommy fixing your router, you got bigger problems. So again, the fact that you have the ability to influence and employ resources in accordance to what needs to get done is the most valuable asset that you bring to an organization is your soft skills. The difference is you got to be able to because we can do anything, right? If you put Tommy as the CEO of an underwater basket weaving company, I'm going to kill it. And I don't know anything about underwater basket weaving, but you have to have that mindset and you need to be able to research it so that you can talk that language, right? And they're hiring you based off of potential, not based off of history. That's the problem. Hiring managers talk about they're hiring you based off your potential, but guess what? They look at your resume and they don't look at potential. They're like, he didn't do this. He didn't do this. He didn't do this. Therefore, he's not a fit. Recruiters, right? So you need to get to the decision makers that can help you acclimatize and share your experience about your background. When I go into career fairs at Verizon, I stopped bringing recruiters. I started bringing directors and vice presidents to career fairs with me and say, talk to Clay. And they're like, yeah, but Clay doesn't have anything to do with what I'm. Nope, watch. And they're like, man, I can make that dude an enterprise sales representative in a second. He'll be making $300,000 in 2 years. Right? So the pivot is you can fit in where you get in. Right? But you got to make sure that you're going to like that area. You're going to need to understand it, you need to research it, and you need to be your best advocate of selling yourself. Right? Don't wait on anybody else. That's why I say that 95-5. Spend 95% of your time pounding the pavement, getting on calls with people to network. Join groups like 50 Strong Mentor. Join groups like this where you're mentoring with others. Join groups with ACP. Any resource that's out there that allows you to connect with people, you should be taking advantage of it. Now, you're going to get the best out of programs like this where you're in cohorts and you're going to learn, right? But don't be blinded by the other resources that are available to you to meet other people. Networking is the key to everything.
Definitely 1000%. It's who here is connecting a lot of dots right now talking with Tommy? Show of hands. Just throw your hands up.
Cassandra just gave me the middle finger. I didn't get to see a thumb. I got a middle. No, I'm only kidding.
No, yeah. So this, having Tommy here and seeing this experience, guys, this is the reason why I was super stoked when I got asked this morning to facilitate this conversation with everyone here, because this is the guy right now, 1000%. So I got another question for you, Tommy. For civilian employers, what is the one soft skill that is undervalued for veteran hiring? Like, if there was one thing that they don't sit there and they really know what they're looking for, but we say it in the resume and they're like, aha, there it is. What is that soft skill?
I'm big on rank and responsibility and leadership. I mean, and the way to articulate it is we are, so I'll use me again as an example. When I joined the Army in 1993, I know I'm old as Christ, is when Christ was a corporal, but when I came in, I was in charge of myself. But by week 1, I was in charge of my battle buddy. And my battle buddy was in charge of me. And then by week 2, I was a squad leader or a team leader in basic training. And so they start to build those leadership responsibilities on you at a very, very early age. And you start to develop, and you have more experience, life experience, than someone that did 4 years in school, because you're actually doing on the job training all the time. So those skills that you bring in, the personal skills, the interpersonal skills, and the decision making process that you have is more valuable than anything. And so how do you showcase that on a resume, right? That's where you need that is where the disconnect is. Like, I use examples all the time in the civilian sector where if I walk in, like, exercise an initiative in the absence of orders is not something that is common in the civilian world, right? If I walk in and there's a meeting going on and there's 15 people in there just sitting there and there's something that I know needs to get done, I'm not going to just sit there and be like, okay, let's just wait till the boss comes in and get things done. I'm going to initiate. I'm going to start. Hey, guys, while we're waiting, let's do something like this. So no matter what your rank is, you're going to exercise initiative. And I think that's one of the biggest things, and that you're a lifetime learner, right? Whether it's from a formalized education system or through the military, you are forced to learn throughout your entire career, right? And those things I think are really undervalued from a soft skill standpoint. There is no one silver bullet, to be honest with you. But that's my best shot at it. It's not probably the right answer, but it's my best shot at it, to be honest with you.
Love it. Absolutely love it. So here I am. I'm interviewing with you. You're the hiring manager. What is the most crucial question a transitioning service member or veteran should ask their potential hiring manager to gauge their company's values of military talent?
Well, so the first thing is I would ask is, do you have any service members that currently work in your organization? Have you ever hired veterans in the past? Right? If you worked for Verizon, that question's already been asked. So one of the things that I added at the recruiting process is, so just so you all know how the recruiting process works, and Clay, I know you know this being from HR and background, but
Yeah.
for the most part, there's a bunch of job descriptions in a database, and the recruiters will set up intake calls with a hiring manager and ask them, what are you looking for in this job? Is this job description what you're looking for? Yeah, well, I'm also looking for this, and this. And so they're going to go in, they're going to craft it and edit that job description to fit, one, what the duties and responsibility are, and two, and what are those things that a hiring manager is looking for. That's why I said you have that basic and preferred qualification where they'll say, what we are looking for is what you should zone right in on, right? And you should be able to tell stories in that job description of examples of things that you've done that showcase that. But when you're in the interview process, you need to understand that as well. You need to understand. So I say the intake call because every recruiter had to ask, do you have any veterans on your team? Have you ever hired a veteran? Right? Because if they haven't, They have no idea. If they have, then they're going to constantly come back to want to hire more veterans. But you could ask questions like, how involved is your company in the military hiring process or in helping veterans? Are there what is your culture? Do you have an employee resource group for veterans? Those are questions you might want to ask. Do you give back in the community from a corporate social responsibility to the military community? Right? Those are things that I think are extremely valuable to help you tell. And then getting away from the military, what do professional development opportunities look like? How do you invest in your employees from a talent acquisition standpoint or from a company culture standpoint? One thing that shocked me is my first job, I had to write my own evaluation. I never had to do that before. I always wrote evaluations on all of my soldiers below me, and then we'd have a conversation on it and we'd talk about it. They agree on or disagree. I went to my first thing when I was leading about 5 people. I wrote all of their annual reviews. They didn't have to do anything. And then I'd share it with them and say, hey, is this accurate? Did I miss anything? I'd write it down, boom. Or I'd say, hey, send me a note of all the things that you want to make sure that I cover during the evaluation so I don't miss anything. When I went to my boss and said, hey, when do you want to do my evaluation? He said, well, when are you done writing it? I'm like, what? I write my own evaluation? Yeah. So realize that the people that you're working for, they're not embedded into the process that we're used to of you're serving below you and you're evaluating them, right? So the questions that you ask about professional development are going to be really important to what your flexibility is. I would also ask, why is this role vacant? What did the last person do that you love? Here's the trick. Every person that is hiring to replace the last person that was in that role that was good. They're not hiring for that job. So chances are, if you're applying to a senior manager role in talent acquisition, the person that got promoted to director, they're trying to hire a director at a senior manager role. So you need to be overqualified because of that, right? So go into that with that mindset that they're hiring based off of the last person. You know how easy recruiting would be is if you just said, these are the requirements for the job, post the job description. We're going to use automatic hiring. We're going to hire based off of people that have the qualifications. No, because there's human elements in it and you're tailored to that person and what they saw, what good looks like in the last role. So if Tommy and Clay sweep the floor twice a day before I left for the day, that's what they're looking for in their mind. They're looking for, if Tommy brought me coffee or every Friday wrote me a summary of all the work I did for the week, like I went above and beyond, that's the candidate they're looking for. So you need to not just meet the requirements, you need to exceed the requirements in a soft skill standpoint too.
Love it. 1000% love it. Well, Tommy, with that being said, we're coming up on the top of the hour. So I do want to thank you very much for your time. Everyone here, 1000%, Tommy is the resource you should be connected with. So make sure you stay connected with Tommy, engage with him. Always don't be afraid to sit there and ask advice out of him, everything like that. Tommy, before we wrap up, 30 seconds real quickly. Any parting words for us today?
First, I'm going to drop in my email address so you don't have to kind of navigate and go to my LinkedIn. You can go to my LinkedIn. That's great. I'll connect with you, no problem. But I also want you to have my email so you can directly reach out to me. There's 4 areas that I talk about. And again, it's all about education. So when I teach classes, I talk about the tactical readiness. I talk about continuing education. I talk about entrepreneurship, and I talk about personal growth. Don't forget about all 4 of those categories and don't leave any of them off the table. I translate it to like this. We all know the 8 steps to evaluating a casualty. And we hope we never have to use those 8 steps to evaluate a casualty, but not knowing a step is on us, right? So if you haven't done your due diligence on employment, continuing education, even thinking about entrepreneurship opportunities. Like I was never a proponent of franchising. Now I am. because I learned how cheap it is to get into it and owning my own business. And I wish I would have known that when I was talking to service members that were leaving Verizon because they didn't feel fulfilled and they wanted to own their own business, but they didn't want to start from scratch. They wanted to go back into another company and go to the grind. And then they waste 10 months or 10 years in the civilian sector, and they could have been a business owner. So don't leave any option unturned. It's your decision to make. So please utilize me for anything, whether it's where you're talking about starting a business, owning a business, buying an existing business, looking at franchise opportunities, looking at continuing education. Let's say you're a pilot and you want to be an HVAC technician. Well, guess what? I know an organization that can get you into that. So you're out of an apprenticeship program in 6 weeks and ready to be an HVAC technician. But you won't know that unless you do the research or you connect with someone like me that has the education for you all. So again, thank you all for your service. Apologize, I was a few minutes late. I was actually mentoring another veteran. So I will be here for you, and I'm looking forward to being part of the team going forward.
Fantastic. Honest, Tommy, thank you very much. All righty.